We have explored the West, the East, the poles, the oceans, and space. What is now to discover? In this series, we are going to talk about exploration, and this week, we will focus on road adventures.
My brother and I are starting this unbelievable journey.
20,000 kilometers, 60 days.
Let's get out of Shanghai, baby!
It's really not easy riding a motorcycle around China.
Watch out for this yellow bus. Always tight. It's the perfect storm.
No way we're getting through here.
This must be one of the most beautiful places you could take a motorcycle.
Here he goes, he's flying! 100 kilometers of feeling really high, and the next 100 kilometers of just feeling really low.
Colin!
This is a 30-kilometer traffic jam.
No one has ever ridden around China on a motorbike before.
Oh, water buffalo.
This is more than just an epic road trip. This is the adventure of a
We
lifetime.
are riding through a sandstorm.
This is the Middle Kingdom ride.
Here with me is Colin Pyle, who is going to talk about his epic journey around China.
Hi, how you doing?
So no one has ever ridden around China before. Was it the challenge that motivated you?
I think, again, the challenge sort of keeps you going day to day, that you want to finish and that you're doing something that no one has done before. But the reality is we set out on this journey to really explore China and show people what China was truly about.
What was your first impression when you started this epic journey? I mean, did you have any stereotype about those countries?
Yeah, I think with most of the West, we sort of see China as the eastern coast, populated cities, you know, pollution, and just this sheer economy that's just rapidly growing and changing so quickly. But I think the second you go west, it really, you break down stereotypes every single day. You don't realize that there's a desert like this in China. You don't realize that people in China look differently than sort of the typical Chinese way. You don't realize that there's so many different dialects. I think every single day, your stereotypes are broken down.
What stereotype do they have about us?
They constantly interact with you and want to come up and talk to you and hear about sort of your life and understand what your life is about. And for sure, I think the wealth factor is very much sort of what they think of you. The second you show up on, yes, you're on an expensive motorcycle, but also, you're white and you're from the West, they just think that you're, very affluent and educated and wealthy, and they often look up to you, which is an interesting thing to just jump into.
Do you think you can travel without being political about it? What I mean is, for example, when you were in Tibet, how did you feel?
I think trying not to be political is extremely difficult, especially from a background, coming from Canada where everything is so open and everyone has a voice, and you rarely come into situations where people are sort of confined or restricted. So in Tibet it was difficult, but you just try to go through and look at the bigger picture. I think China, no matter how you look at it, has raised 400 million people out of poverty in the last 20 years. And yes, they may not have done some things correctly, but then you look at India, and it's it's kind of a complete mess still. So it's like, which one's better? And I think there's lots of problems in India and there's lots of problems in China. And so I don't know if the world really has the right way or the only way to do things. And so I just try to step back and just look at what they've accomplished and just take in the beauty of the scenery and the nice, the nice hospitality of the people.
Would you say that the adventurer's duty is to speak up for those people?
For us, it wasn't about speaking on their behalf. It was about showing people what China was about, what China was really about. I don't think it's my role. Some people travel solely to sort of show the harshness of reality of the local people, and that's sort of their goal and what they want to voice. For us, that wasn't our goal. We just wanted to show people what China was actually about. And in doing that, if people sort of see the beauty and see how people live, they can come to their own judgments and maybe inspire them to go and travel and see it for themselves and make their own judgments.
Would you say that exploration is about fighting the impossible?
Yeah, I think, you know, fighting the impossible is a tough word. I think, you know, the explorations that exist now, I think absolutely you are fighting the impossible. You know, Felix Baumgartner, you know, jumping from space, like that is fighting the impossible. But I think there are explorations like ours that, you know, while are difficult, you know, we were really exploring a culture and seeing the change that sort of this you know, the world has put on China and how quickly China is changing. And so we really wanted to explore the cultural differences and the change and the diversity of the people and the landscapes in China. So in that sense, yes, it was difficult, but was it impossible? No, not so much.
Would you say that adventures nowadays is a luxury of the Western civilization?
I think historically that's how we'll look at adventure, but I think hopefully going forward we'll see, I think, again, I think the bar is kind of raising globally. A lot of people are coming out of poverty, and I think once you come out of sort of that poverty and on like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs type of thing, you start, once you can feed yourself and feed your family, you start to look elsewhere. You start to look, where else can I go and explore? And you're seeing that a lot in China and India, where the local people are really starting to take an interest in their own country. And domestic travel is becoming a huge thing in China and India. And I only think that's a matter of time before it sort of slowly expands. I think the Western world has a long way to go in opening up to these people that want to come and explore our countries, because, you know, Europe is such a fascinating place to see, and I think is on the list of so many people globally where they want to just sort of see where civilization started in some sense. So, but getting visas is tough, and staying here for a long time is also very difficult. So if the world sort of contracts up, it's going to be difficult for people to travel.
What is your next adventure? Canada, Europe?
Yeah, I think, you know, Canada would be fascinating, and you know, I'm embarrassed to say a little bit that I haven't seen so much of my own country, but I think Canada would be maybe a little boring, and so would Europe. I think what I really enjoy is seeing countries in this rapid flux of change, whether it's, you know, economically, politically, or just, you know, just the sheer density of the population, all changing at the same time, you know, with technology and, you know, the global economy. It's just so fascinating. So, you know, you look at China and India, you know, the two largest countries in the world. It's 3 billion people between them almost. It's coming from Canada that's 30 million. It's just, you know, blows your mind. So where else, you know, maybe Brazil or Russia or South Africa, these countries that are just changing so quickly, that really have so much to offer as a backdrop to sort of riding across.
Thank you, Colin, for your time and sharing your passion with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you.
If you want to find out more about Colin's travel, please go to blackwell.co.uk and follow the link to the B series.